You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
And we are continuing to follow breaking news. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing her retirement after this term. She's represented San Francisco in Congress for almost 4 decades. Thanks for being with us this Thursday. I'm Ann Makovic, and the 85-year-old Congresswoman shattered the glass ceiling in Congress and plans to end her career after nearly 4 decades in Washington. The former House Speaker says she plans to retire at the end of her term. She gave her first speech on the House floor back in 1987, rose up the ranks, and was sworn in as House Speaker in 2007.
To the first woman speaker in our history, the gentlelady from California, Nancy Pelosi.
Now House Speaker Emerita became one of the most influential figures in American politics and was a longtime representative of San Francisco. Reporter Nicole Killian begins our coverage from Washington, D.C.
Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made the announcement in a video post this morning, describing it as a letter to the people of San Francisco.
I have truly loved serving as your voice in Congress, and I've always honored the song of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace, the anthem of our city. That is why I want you, my fellow San Franciscans, to be the first to know. I will not be seeking re-election to Congress.
Pelosi's decision was months in the making. She was the first woman to ever serve as House Speaker, ascending to the role twice from 2007 to 2011 and again from 2019 to 2023. Elected in 1987, she championed many pieces of key legislation, including passage of the Affordable Care Act. She also built a reputation as a shrewd leader, wielding her influence over House Democrats. But she also wasn't afraid to challenge President Trump, ripping up his State of the Union address during his first term. This morning, House Democratic leaders are praising Pelosi for her leadership, mentorship, and patriotism. Pelosi says she will serve out the remainder of her term through 2027.
Well, Nicole just mentioned how Pelosi ripped up the speech during Trump's State of the Union address that happened during his first term back in 2020, right behind the president's back. Later, Pelosi told reporters it was a manifesto of mistruths and that she felt liberated after shredding the speech. This was another viral Pelosi moment. The year before that, during the State of the Union in 2019, she clapped at Trump after he called to reject the politics of revenge. Pelosi also led the fight against HIV and AIDS. She hosted the first fundraiser for the AIDS quilt and advocated for policy changes. She also campaigned for marriage equality and against Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Nancy Pelosi will be known forever as the greatest Speaker of the House in American history.
Well, that was the moment back in 2024 that former President Joe Biden presented Pelosi with the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Today, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries called Pelosi the greatest House Speaker of all time.
Speaker Pelosi is an iconic, historic, legendary, transformational leader who will go down in history as the greatest Speaker of all time. It's been the honor of my life to be able to serve with her, to be mentored by her. She's an amazing colleague, and the country is better off today because of what Nancy Pelosi has done during her decades of public service.
Today, House Speaker Mike Johnson noted Pelosi's announcement, but focused his speech on this week's election and once again blamed Democrats for the government shutdown.
The old guard has been repudiated, and the radicals are taking over the Democratic Party. We have evidence now every day. Yesterday, Jared Golden announced he would not be running for re-election in the state of Maine. He's a moderate, and he has no place in his party anymore. And then this morning, you saw the headline. Former Speaker Nancy Pelosi has now announced her retirement this morning. That is a very important sign that I hope that you all will delve into. Even the famous San Francisco liberal is not far left enough for the neo-Marxists. We commend her for her services. We all do, everyone who serves in Congress, but there should be a lot written about that.
Let's turn now to Mark Sandalow, who previously served as the Washington bureau chief for the San Francisco Chronicle. He's now at University of California's Washington program. He wrote a biography on Pelosi, and I spoke with him about the news. Okay, you are certainly one of our local experts on her life and times. Speaking of, let's talk about the timing of this announcement. We just heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson saying it was interesting being on the heels of the election, saying that this means the Democratic Party is turning more liberal. Do you think there's any truth to that?
I mean, again, the stuff that the Republicans say about Nancy Pelosi, the idea that she is retiring and that's a sign that it's becoming, more liberal. This is the thing that I think most people didn't appreciate about Nancy Pelosi, and she took grief over this for her entire career. She had the heart of a liberal, but she had the pragmatism, the brain of a pragmatist, meaning that she represented San Francisco's liberal values, and she was a liberal to the core. People in Washington were stunned when I would tell them that people in San Francisco actually thought she was not liberal enough at times. But she also always wanted to win. And she understood that imposing San Francisco values, priorities on the entire nation would never leave the Democrats to the majority. So she was like, when she was speaker, she was very supportive of conservative Democrats from Southern Indiana, from North Carolina, from Texas, while at the same time trying to get a Democratic majority that could push some liberal ideas forward.
Her strategy really was unmatched, and it's made its mark on the party for decades now. How do you think that could ever be replaced?
It's clearly a void because she was behind the scenes operator. She was a behind the scenes operator, for years, and she understood the details. I'm sure that they will be calling her for expertise, but look, times march on. I mean, she was 47 years old when she first ran for office, and her youngest daughter Alexandra she was a senior in high school at that point. There are now over 100 members of Congress who are younger than her youngest daughter. I mean, there's got to be a time when people move on and turn over to the next leaf. I teach students at the University of California, and as much as some of them may respect Pelosi, she's old enough to be their grandmother, for some of them, even their great-grandmother. And I think she understands that it's time for a new generation.
Sure, she is 85 years old. I wouldn't blame her for wanting a break. But talk about her potential successor, because she's been known as sort of the kingmaker of the Democratic Party. But I'm not seeing somebody who was specifically chosen to be her replacement.
No, I think that she had a couple people in mind, and neither of them are still in the House. But, Hakeem Jeffries, who is the Democratic leader and who will become Speaker if Democrats take control, is somebody who's very close to Pelosi, and she has worked with him, a great deal. Nationally, it's unclear who it is. And San Francisco is going to face this fascinating choice because you've got a couple of announced candidates already. You've got Shaikat Chakrabarti, who is a former chief of staff for AOC, who represents the left wing. He's in San Francisco running, and you've got Scott Wiener, the state senator, who is much more of the pragmatist. And just like when Pelosi ran in 1987, when she was the establishment figure versus Harry Britt, who was Harvey Milk accolade, San Francisco has to decide whether or not it wants a liberal out there shouting liberal values, or whether it wants an inside operator who can try to get, things done from the inside. There's not a right answer on that quiz, I mean, there are definitely different approaches to this. Pelosi was very, very clear, and all you have to do is look at the Republicans and the trouble they have had keeping their coalition together. I mean, the far right of the Republican Party and the right of the Republican Party in the House are always at war with each other. Pelosi kept together, the AOCs of the party and the conservatives in the Democratic Party in a way that politicians since have had an impossible time doing.
Oh, pretty remarkable. All right, thanks for your insight, Mark. Congresswoman Pelosi has served 7 presidential administrations, the political powerhouse. She has advanced some of the most important legislation in the country. And today we asked David McEwen, political science professor at Sonoma State, what this means for California politics.
As you hear this breaking news today, what are your thoughts? Look, Nancy Pelosi is a historic figure beyond just being a powerhouse for Democratic politics. First speaker, female speaker of the House, not just once, but twice. Someone who grew up in a Democratic household, the daughter of the mayor, former mayor of Baltimore and Congress member. She's someone who is infamous, right, for tearing up the State of the Union speech of Donald Trump, but also someone who helped bring Obamacare across the line, and someone who's talked about health care deeply and for a long time. She is a heavyweight, but she's also like the godmother of Democrats and has brought a lot of careers along. And so this really also, I think, Reed, symbolizes a broader generational change within the Democratic Party, and therefore it will be a knife fight to be her successor as well.
Yeah, so she has waited to make this announcement. She wanted to see the results of the election earlier this week. How do you think that might have played into her decision to sort of pass the torch to the next generation?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Look, she wanted to give Gavin Newsom and the proponents and the people in the front, if you will, for Proposition 50, wanted to give them their due yesterday. In addition, Democrats had a good night across the country. Nationally on Tuesday, she wanted that not to get lost. And then this video announcement, which really is an ode to San Francisco, a love affair with her adopted city, where she's been such an icon, right? She brought the Democratic Convention here in 1984. She joins the House in '87 before the Year of the Woman. And while we've seen Barbara Boxer, right, leave the U.S. Senate, we've seen the passing of Dianne Feinstein, Nancy Pelosi has always been there, and she's always been there for San Francisco. And this is really an iconic generational moment and change. And that's why so many of us are paying an ode to her, because she also has framed and referenced a kinder set of politics, a politics that was about us, not about me. And that's an important element of her legacy as well. And she's also been hugely inspiring, not just to women in politics, but to those who are less fortunate. And that's where her faith has played an important role in who she's been as a public figure.
Well, a crucial time for Democrats right now, who between now and the midterms next year are working very hard to capture the House and the Senate. They feel like maybe a lot of voters will see that it's a referendum on President Trump and his many initiatives, many of which erode a lot of the work of House Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi. Yeah. Any word this morning from any of your political channels who she will endorse next? Because, of course, all eyes are on State Senator Scott Wiener, who'd like the keys to her office in Congress.
Right, and there's no love lost between the Pelosi-Wiener team here. You also have a Democratic Socialist Chakrabarti who is in this race. Ironic, because obviously of the election of Mamdani in New York City. But the word on the street, just between the three of us, is that she's interested in endorsing Connie Chan, the San Francisco supervisor. If that were to happen, that would be a huge deal. But look, this is going to be a big, big fight between the Wiener team, between Chakrabarti and Democratic Socialists and Connie Chan, if she gets in the race, and with labor involved there. But Nancy Pelosi is the person that tips the scales. She's a juggernaut of fundraising. She's a juggernaut of a leader, and her endorsement would be huge and would be a big, big deal. And so pay very close attention to those developments, I'd say, in the near term, especially in the wake of this video announcement and the tribute to faith, family, and her leadership that we saw this morning.
And I can only imagine more names will be emerging. I mean, she's going to be in office still until 2027. Right. Any thoughts on what we might see from her in the final year?
Yeah, look, Democrats believe that it's an existential crisis to win the House next year. They believe that democracy practically ends if that doesn't happen. And so she's going to put a lot of money and a lot of energy, and those 16 to 18-hour days that she normally has for as a leader and pushing forward for Democrats, those are going to turn into 20 to 22-hour days nationally, because she can have a huge influence on Democrats retaking the House if the voters were to go for that next fall.
Well,
even at age 85.
Right.
Amazing.
Right. That's right.
Well, and at that age, she told us the day before Election Day, November 3rd, that she wanted to see Proposition 50, the redrawing of our own congressional maps to favor Democrats. She wanted to see that passed, and then we would know what the next chapter is for her. And now we know. David,
that's right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you look at sleep is for the weak, if you look at that term and you look in the dictionary, Nancy Pelosi is right there. That's what she's going to be doing over the next year. It's going to be just phenomenal. Her energy is never ending.
And while there hasn't been any word on who officially Nancy Pelosi will endorse for the next person to take her seat, we do know that State Senator Scott Wiener is going to be running for it. And I spoke with him today on our morning edition. I'm sure it's a busy day for you, everyone looking for your reaction as the only person who has stepped in to potentially replace Nancy Pelosi in Congress. What are you thinking this morning?
Well, today is really about Nancy Pelosi and the mountains that she has moved for San Francisco and for our country. Tens of millions of people have health care because of her. She has brought incredible investment in clean energy and in transportation and housing. She helped save our country multiple times during the Great Recession, during COVID. She's just an extraordinary human being. And I am just so grateful for her service and for her legacy.
No, you had already announced your candidacy. I can only imagine you're breathing a bit of a sigh of relief that you're not actually going to have to run against her.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I got into the race because it was getting very late, only a few months from the filing deadline. There was an active race happening. It's critically important that San Francisco have strong representation in Congress, and the Speaker Emerita had not indicated that she was running, so we got in. Obviously, you know, we're focused on building out our campaign and looking forward to making the case to the people of San Francisco.
So going forward, if you were to take her seat, what would you like to carry on when it comes to her legacy? And what would you like to see done differently?
Well, we need to be very clear that Nancy Pelosi's shoes will never be filled by anyone. They are unique, and there will never be another Nancy Pelosi, the greatest speaker in the history of the United States, and just extraordinary. So I'm running as Scott Wiener. I'm going to focus on you know, really trying to make people's lives better. We need the federal government to get back into helping solve our housing crisis because that is pricing people out. We need to restructure our healthcare system to expand access and make it more affordable. We need universal healthcare coverage, and we need to really get energy costs under control and have so much more clean energy in this country, which Trump is trying to destroy. And of course, we need to save our democracy.
So, yeah, you're talking about a lot of big ideas, and people across the nation know Nancy Pelosi. She's been a bit of a lightning rod of controversy, depending on which side of the aisle you are. But for us here in the Bay Area, what is it going to mean to have her step aside? What are we losing?
I mean, it's definitely it's a loss for San Francisco and the Bay Area because I think people may not have always fully appreciated how much Nancy Pelosi delivered in general for the country, but specifically for our city and our region in terms of investment, in terms of making sure our transportation system was fully funded, housing, and so forth. So she protecting the UC and science funding. It's really like an endless list. And so it is absolutely a loss, but I just really respect the speaker and respect her decision.
Pelosi has been integral to some huge moments in modern U.S. politics, and we heard today from Susan Page with USA Today.
People like her policies or dislike them, but it is hard to deny that she has been the most consequential legislative leader of modern times. She stands in the company of people like Lyndon Johnson and Sam Rayburn in terms of her passage of big legislation like Obamacare, like the financial bailout in 2008, and in her power with presidents, leading the impeachment of Donald Trump twice, and just last year engineering the pressure on Joe Biden that convinced him to withdraw from seeking a second term.
House Minority Whip Catherine Clark from Massachusetts called Pelosi an iconic figure.
I'm just incredibly grateful to Speaker Pelosi, not only for her leadership in the House, her mentorship, but what she has done for our country. She is truly an iconic figure. And through her values, through her strength, her leadership, her persistence, she has moved us forward as a country to those ideals that we uphold of liberty and justice for all. And she does it with grace and strength and deeply rooted in her faith. And I'm very happy for her in this moment, but we will miss her.
Can I ask favorite Pelosiism?
Oh, you've got to be able to take a punch and throw a punch for the children.
And this post from Governor Newsom, quote, Nancy Pelosi has inspired generations. Her courage and conviction to San Francisco, California, and our nation has set the standard for what public service should be. Her impact on this nation is unmatched. He says, thank you, Madam Speaker, wishing you the best in this new chapter. You've more than earned it. And Oakland Mayor and former Congresswoman Barbara Lee writing on social media, calling Pelosi her dear friend and colleague, quote, her bold leadership paved the way for so many women and so much progress. Thank you, Nancy, for the fierce fight, the unwavering courage, and your decades of service to our country. You can stay with us for continuing coverage of Nancy Pelosi's retirement on air on our website, kpix.com, and streaming on the free CBS News app. Still ahead here on CBS News Bay Area, the FAA planning to reduce flights across the country as the government shutdown drags on, the potential impact at Bay Area airports.
Yesterday's atmospheric river brought in some pretty impressive rainfall totals for our friends, especially up into the North Bay, stretched off into our inland spots. Today and tomorrow, things are looking a little bit different in our inland areas. We're back into the 70s. Daytime highs are starting to average back out to normal as we dive into this weekend, and we'll continue to see cloudy skies, especially for our friends along the bay and the coast. A little bit sunnier conditions expected off into our inland areas today and tomorrow. Now, here's what's happening for us as we head into next week. Another chance of showers right around the corner into mid next week as early as Wednesday. We're going to keep you updated on those rainfall totals here in the Weather Center.
Well, today is day 37 of the government shutdown, and travelers are bracing for more chaos at the airport. The Trump administration says that thousands of flights could be canceled every day starting tomorrow. The FAA announcing plans to reduce air traffic by 10% at 40 major airports in the U.S. They say it's for safety as staffing shortages grow at air traffic control centers. It's because a lot of people are calling out sick because they're not being paid. So there's a good chance that SFO and Oakland airports are on that list. Our Veronica Macias has more from SFO.
As of this morning, still no official confirmation that SFO or Oakland's airport will be on that list. Still, their major airports and airlines themselves, say officials here at SFO, could determine to scale back the number of flights. Already, airlines like United, American, letting people know they're rolling with the updates, are hoping to let people know with advance notice if there are changes, but they're letting people know to please check their flight status before arriving to the airport. Here at SFO this morning, no long lines at TSA, but FlightAware was showing several delays, 70 as of 8 in the morning. And the weekend, this weekend, Veterans Weekend, is when airlines, they start seeing an increase in travel into the holiday season. As the government shutdown reaches a record 36 days, air traffic controllers continue working without pay, which is why they're scaling back. People have concerns about the ripple effects. While the flight out of SFO may not be canceled for you, there's anxiety over those connections. And people say after tomorrow, once airlines do scale back on scheduled flights, they're worried not only about the long lines, but also about prices going up.
It's going to be a long haul, and I don't know if now is the time to travel, but you know, they have to they factor in when they get here what they have to go through to get to their gate, and that they're cutting flights, so it's going to be oversold flights, and it's going to be kind of a mess for a while.
Because they've cut back so much on air traffic controllers, I think that does have an impact on what's happening now. And I'm a psychologist, and so I pay attention to how people feel, and I feel that there's a lot of anxiety around that. That's how I feel.
Just a sign of the times here, when you email the FAA, as we did this morning, you get an automated response saying they are not handling media inquiries because of a lapse in funding. So the best thing you can do is check your flight status before arriving to an airport so you're not waiting in all the chaos.
Air traffic controllers last received a slimmed down paycheck on October 14th. That was for the hours they worked prior to the shutdown. Most have been on duty 6 days a week and working mandatory overtime. And the president of the Air Traffic Controllers Association says they're really feeling the impact.
Air traffic controllers are showing up to work every day to deal with issues that we've never seen before. 36-day shutdown. The stresses, the pressure, the fatigue is setting in. Air traffic controllers are texting, I don't even have enough money to put gas in my car to come to work.
While there is fatigue amongst the workforce, Daniels insists it is still safe to fly on the flights that are taking off. Coming up in our next half hour here on CBS News Bay Area, we are continuing our coverage on Nancy Pelosi's retirement, speaking with a CSU East Bay political history professor on what this means for the future of Bay Area politics.
You're streaming CBS News Bay Area.
And we are continuing to follow breaking news. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing her retirement after this term, after representing San Francisco in Congress for decades. Thanks for being with us. I'm Ann Makovic. Pelosi releasing a video this morning making that announcement. Here it is.
I will not be seeking re-election to Congress. With a grateful heart, I look forward to my final year of service as your proud representative. As we go forward, my message to the city I love is this: San Francisco, know your power. We have made history, we have made progress, we have always led the way. And now we must continue to do so by remaining full participants in our democracy and fighting for the American ideals we hold dear. In doing so, we ensure that our city shines on as a beacon of hope, justice, and peace for the country and for generations to come. After all,
Congressman Pelosi announcing the end of one of the most consequential political careers in modern history early this morning. She shattered glass ceilings, becoming one of the most powerful women in American history. The 85-year-old was the nation's first and only female House Speaker, and she has represented San Francisco in Congress for almost 40 years.
This is a very big announcement from the Speaker Emerita, but it isn't one that's shocking. I mean, she's been telegraphing this move for a while now, saying that she was going to wait until after the election happens to release a statement on the fate of her career in Congress. That was obviously signaling that she was winding down her time here, but this also comes after she saw the 2024 election go in a way that she didn't want it to go. She was a part of the voices who was concerned about the president's age, then Joe Biden. And so now that she's approaching 86 years old, it was in her mind time to step down. Democrats on the Hill that we spoke with say that she gave her the heads up. That was including Hakeem Jeffries, her successor as minority leader here in the House. And Republicans have quite the different reaction. House Speaker Mike Johnson said that he believes Pelosi is stepping down because she doesn't like the direction of the party, saying that she wouldn't be willing to lean into what he called the Marxist left agenda. Of course, this comes after a significant win for her home state of California in that Prop 50 vote. So it seems to be disconnected from what he's saying. But again, she was a power broker, not just on the Hill, but on the campaign trail. She raised quite a bit of money for members of this caucus, and that's a big set of shoes or heels that Speaker, or not Speaker, but Minority Leader Jeffries will have to pick up as they move forward without her.
Now let's break some of this down with CSU East Bay political history professor Dr. Nolan Higdon. Thanks so much for being with us today.
No, thank you for having me.
Let's talk a little bit about the timing here. I mean, it's no shocker she's 85 years old that she might be retiring. But what about this coming after the election, and what does that say about the future of the party?
Yeah, well, imagine her age certainly played a role. Representative Nancy Pelosi has had quite a storied career. Was in a leadership position within the party in which she stepped down and handed that over to Representative Hakeem Jeffries. So I think this has been in the making for quite some time. She had mentioned previously she was going to make her announcement after this vote, and so I think she thought the time was right. And she's been through a lot in recent years. The attack on her husband. The terror that was January 6th. So I think she's been through a lot recently. She's getting to a certain age, and the party's moving in a new direction. There's a lot of younger faces who are taking the attention and trying to lead the party, and so I imagine the time just felt right.
So when it comes to that, she was a major foe of President Trump. We have the, infamous speech ripping incident and whatnot. Do you think this morning he is saying, phew, she's gone, or uh-oh, what's next?
I would have to imagine that President Trump is very happy that Nancy Pelosi is leaving Congress. For folks who are old enough to remember Trump's first term, Nancy Pelosi was a very tough opposition to the president, was very good at negotiating with him, didn't mind getting in front of the camera and hitting him pretty hard. There were some famous confrontations within the Oval Office. And, even since she stepped down from a leadership position in the party, there's been a lot of chatter during this recent shutdown from a lot of Democratic Party groups that they wish they had someone like Nancy Pelosi back in that position.
Now, what is it about her that she was able to wield so much power for so long? I mean, even I saw a tweet today from Marjorie Taylor Greene giving her props, saying that she's able to get things done.
Yeah, I think that's a combination of things. First off, she has a long history of being a very effective fundraiser, and that predates her time in Congress as well. And so I think that probably played a critical role. And also, of course, Representative Pelosi is also a very shrewd leader. She really knew how to whip votes. She knew where points of leverage were and wasn't afraid to use them. And for all those reasons, I think she commanded respect throughout Congress.
And of course, she's not finished yet. We have another year plus of Nancy Pelosi leadership. What do you think we might expect in that next year?
Nancy Pelosi does not strike me as the type of person who's going to, take her foot off the gas, even though the clock is running out. She always seems to be someone who's not afraid of confrontation, not afraid of the spotlight. Let's not forget, she had already sort of stepped back out of that leadership role in the Democratic Party in Congress when she led the effort to get then President Joe Biden to drop out of the 2024 race. So I think Nancy Pelosi may have told us when the term is going to end, but I don't think we're going to see a different Pelosi in the interim.
She is going to be still pulling those strings behind the scenes. All right, we will be watching. Thank you for your insight, Dr. Nolan Hickton. Again, stay with us for continuing coverage on Nancy Pelosi's retirement on air on our website, kpix.com, and streaming on the free CBS News app. Coming up next here on CBS News Bay Area, there's one agency that went quiet for the government shutdown that you might not have noticed. But will the U.S. Geological Survey be ready to activate in case of a major quake?
People would do their best to make that work, but that coordination is something which will be made much harder during a shutdown.
Daytime highs today just a little bit warmer compared to yesterday. We're back into the 70s off into the East Bay. There's those showers sweeping through in the overnight hours tonight that will give us another little splash before we dive into this weekend's forecast right around the corner. It's not going to amount to much, though. And another thing I want to pull up, too, is our friends all the way down into Monterey, Salinas, and Santa Cruz, too. It wasn't as impressive of a storm for us down here. We saw closer to around 1/100 of an inch of rain, and daytime highs today, we're only sitting in the 60s today, widespread throughout these communities. Here's our rainfall totals, close to around 1/10 of an inch over up into Santa Cruz, but all throughout the bay and all throughout our areas down into Monterey and Salinas, things are pretty much drying up and warming up as we head into this weekend. We're still going to hold on tight to the clouds, though, so get used to that. As we head into the next couple days, we'll jump from the 60s back into the 70s for our friends along places like San Francisco and Oakland. It's not until next Wednesday where we see another chance of showers in our long-range models, so keep that in mind. Those umbrellas, don't pack them away too tight just yet because you're going to want them as we head into the next 6 to 7 days. We head over into our inland spots. It's looking pretty similar. I'm going to have more on this forecast coming up in just a bit. For now, back to you.
Well, today, State Attorney General Rob Bonta testified before Democratic lawmakers, and he was talking about several things dealing with the government shutdown and how it is affecting people of California. This comes after the Trump administration's decision to only provide partial benefits despite a court order. Today, Bonta blasted that decision in front of the Democratic Steering and Policy Committee.
They decided to only use the contingency funds and make partial payments to those who are eligible across the states. That's a problem. Why? Because it is an administrative nightmare. It creates a delay. people are already not getting their benefits since the beginning of this month. It will take multiple weeks for these partial payments to be processed, for EBT cards to be loaded, and for hungry Americans to be able to get the food that they need and they deserve.
Bonta led a lawsuit that forced the Trump administration to dip into federal emergency funds to keep most food payments going. Meanwhile, Bay Area communities continue to step up to help those that rely on SNAP benefits. Contra Costa County is allocating $21 million to provide debit cards for those who still aren't getting their benefits. Those debit cards are going to be available next week. The U.S. Geological Survey right now is not allowed to do any work because of the government shutdown. Brian Hackney explains how that could silence critical information in case of emergency.
This is the USGS doing what it does best.
270 degrees, 41.2 seconds.
Informing the public about quakes.
Yeah, that's showing the actual offset.
What will happen before one hits and what happens after.
Everything's been pretty well recon.
But for now, their lips are sealed. Try reaching USGS. You'll get an automated response reading in part that because of the shutdown, they're prohibited from conducting work as a federal employee. But despite that prohibition,
I think everything will change at the occurrence of a big quake.
Okay. Geophysicist Ross Stein spent a lifetime at USGS.
I can't speak for the survey, but I spent 30 years there, and I know an awful lot of good people there, and wild horses couldn't keep them from working on the quake.
Even though they're forbidden from returning phone calls and emails until further notice?
It's my understanding that in an emergency, the USGS would permit direct communication with the scientists to continue talking with the public.
Some things are still up and running because they're automated.
Earthquake early warning that could potentially give the public seconds of notification before the strong shaking begins.
And before a big quake, could clues to an impending quake go unnoticed because of the shutdown? Case in point, the Lake Elsman quakes in the late 80s, 2 magnitude 5s that now look like warning signals that Loma Prieta was about to snap, which it did.
Yes, in retrospect, those Lake Elsman earthquakes do indeed look like foreshocks, but we're no farther in our ability to use earthquakes like that, moderate little guys, magnitude 5s, to forecast the occurrence of the next earthquake. So the short answer is we'll miss those clues again, but it's not because of the shutdown per se, it's because it's so hard to read those tea leaves.
So that speaks for USGS, but what about the other federal agencies that it would have to coordinate with in the event of something big happening?
Now you've hit a soft spot. That would be very hard to do. Again, I feel people would improvise, people would do their best to make that work, but that coordination is something which will be made much harder during a shutdown.
Okay, so there will be a response, but it will not be as efficient as it would have been if the government had been up and running.
Probably so.
Oh, the major holdup remains in the U.S. Senate, where any spending bill needs at least 60 votes to pass. Democrats continue to push for an extension to health care subsidies that were slashed by President Trump's budget and spending bill. Coming up here on CBS News Bay Area, a local program helping students take flight, literally. How this South Bay pilot is helping to shape the next generation of aviation engineers.
When these kids reach a point where they let me know this is it. This is what they want. You see the excitement in my face.
Yesterday's atmospheric river brought in some pretty impressive rainfall totals for our friends, especially up into the North Bay, stretched off into our inland spots. Today and tomorrow, things are looking a little bit different in our inland areas. We're back into the 70s. Daytime highs are starting to average back out to normal as we dive into this weekend. And we'll continue to see cloudy skies, especially for our friends along the bay and the coast. A little bit sunnier conditions expected off into our inland areas today and tomorrow. Now, here's what's happening for us as we head into next week. Another chance of showers right around the corner into mid next week as early as Wednesday. We're going to keep you updated on those rainfall totals here in the Weather Center.
Well, today is National STEM, it's actually this Saturday is National STEM Day, and an East Palo Alto nonprofit is helping youth take flight. Bay Area Urban Eagles teaching students about the world of aviation and aeronautics, offering pilot ground classes and flight training. Our Mary Lee spoke with the students and mentors behind the program.
Jason Ozan's dreams are reaching new heights with the Bay Area Urban Eagles.
You know, there's nothing like being in a plane and feeling the engine power, and you know, it's just you in an airplane. There's no speed limit, no police, no anything.
Jason was one of the first students when Bay Area Urban Eagles started 2 years ago. He now has his own private pilot license, and in January, Jason will attend San Jose State to study aeronautical engineering. Through aviation, he discovered a passion for science he never knew he had.
100% a passion. I never liked math or science or anything, but being in aviation has sparked it in me to want to learn and understand how these things work and how it incorporates in everyday life, honestly.
Jason was my flight instructor for the day, helping me pilot this large flight simulator for the first time.
No one to crash the plane or something.
Okay. So you're gonna have one hand on that side and one hand's gonna be on the throttle here.
Okay.
We'll get you
Yikes,
down.
yikes. Oh no. Okay.
And then pull up, you gotta flare.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay. Did we just die?
You crashed.
Michael Mashak is the Bay Area Urban Eagles founder and CEO. After retiring from working decades in corporate America, Michael bought this plane. Soon, young people from his church and in his neighborhood heard about it and wanted to learn how to fly. So he took them under his wing, literally, and Bay Area Urban Eagles was born.
Growing up right next to the Palo Alto airport, I would come over and found it a little bit intimidating because there was no one that I could identify with. So I know that there are young people, especially now that they've come to me, I know there's young people who are interested in the industry, the aviation industry. And I want to let them know that they belong here.
Their private pilot ground school is a 3-month program preparing students for the FAA exam. Once they pass and receive their student pilot certificate, they start their 40-hour minimum FAA required flight training. Michael is proud to open up this new world to young people of color.
When these kids reach a point where they let me know this is it. This is what they want. You see the excitement in my face. That's what it does for me.
I couldn't have done any of this without him, and his connections have connected me to a whole bunch of people that have helped me and influenced me into this goal and helped achieve these dreams of mine.
Jason's future is already taking off as he pursues his dream of becoming a commercial pilot. He's grateful to Michael and Bay Area Urban Eagles for believing and investing in him. You could say the sky's the limit for Jason.
Since Bay Area Urban Eagles started 2 years ago, they've served more than 50 students. Their next pilot ground school starts in January. Thanks for streaming CBS News Bay Area. I'm Ann Makovic. We're going to be right back with your first alert forecast and another look at your top stories.